Hallucinating, crazy, getting lost for miles. May have gotten too fucked up cause I forgot how to smile. Gonna have to do this shit Jim Morrison style. Is it worth it? Probably not, but it's worth a try. Witam towarzyszy, to jest Polinkarz, and today I wanted to do a real quick reaction video to this video by Time Ghost History, aka Indy. And this video is called Lenin's Death and Stalin's Rise to Power. Now, I'm not going to do the whole fucking video because it'll take way too much time. I'm just going to do a couple parts that I picked out and just correct them. So yeah, let's go ahead and just get right into it.
Leninism is nothing else than a practical approach to achieve a communist state. As with all flavors of communism, the ultimate goal is the overthrow of capitalism in favor of a new order based on absolute equality, an abolition of social class, and an economic system based on communal ownership. While that might...
Okay, so that was mostly correct. Obviously, he omitted the whole stateless, moneyless thing. Of course, he mentions the whole classless thing, but he's not going to say, oh, well, it's also a stateless and moneyless society. But doesn't matter. The last part is the only issue I have with the statement because he says it's based on communal ownership. That's not exactly the case. It's more about worker ownership of the means of production. Communism is an association of free producers. It's not. It's not like everything is just owned by the commune collectively. There are legitimate. There is legitimate ownership on both the collective and individual level. And I'm actually going to get into that in another video that I'm planning, but I just wanted to say that.
might sound great on paper, it's very hard to imagine what that would be like in actuality. And it's certainly...
It's not that hard to imagine if you've actually read the fucking, the text, like, about it, Like, you hear capitalists say this shit all the time, like, well, it sounds great on paper, but we don't know how could it possibly work in actuality? Well, fucking read the fucking book, you fucking dumbass. Like, Jesus Christ.
isn't the way human society has naturally developed. However...
Oh my god. The fucking nature argument. What the fuck is human nature, first of all? The whole nature argument is fallacious in the first place, because if you think about it, everything humanity has done up until this point is natural. Like, everything that has ever happened ever is natural. So, that's not an argument against communism. That's just a statement that has no relevance to anything. Everything that has ever happened is natural. That doesn't disprove communism. Just because, even then, like, we had primitive communism. Like, is primitive communism not natural, but class and fucking state money society is natural? Like, what's the correlation here? There is no correlation. It's just a baseless claim. Let's just continue.
Achieve it, it would require a massive amount of planning and management.
Well, socialism, yeah. But communism, not really, because communism only can exist in a post-scarcity society. When you have an abundance of everything, there doesn't need to be massive centralized planning. It's an association of free producers, as I said before. However, socialism, since it exists before post-scarcity, does require planning and etc. But here's the thing, right? Capitalism is not just a completely unplanned system. Capitalism is planned by the capitalists. The market economy is not completely an independent, self-guided mechanism. The capitalists control the market. The capitalists control the economy. However, there is a level of uncertainty. But in socialism, you have... because due to the lack of a market and etc., there is efficient and legitimate central planning, which allows and ensures that all people have all the resources and necessities that they require. And as we've seen historically, countries that use planned economies, centrally planned economies, are far more successful. I mean, it doesn't even have to be socialism. For example, just look at South Korea. People say, oh, well, South Korea is the greatest example of a free market. No, it's fucking not. Everything throughout their entire development, the state had an extremely the state was extremely involved in the development of the economy. It wasn't just the free market guiding South Korea. The South Koreans knew that the state would have to take part in the planning of the economy if they wished to compete with the much faster growing DPRK. Granted, the South Koreans had massive amounts of funding from the US, and due to the combination of shit tons of capital from the US and state planning in South Korea, they managed to outgrow the DPRK. But the point is that we've seen historically that every single country, socialist or capitalist, that has state involvement, that has a centrally planned economy to some extent, does better. They do better in development and economic growth. Now, I mean, I use South Korea as an example, but that's just to give an example to the capitalists, because every single socialist society, every single socialist country, whether it be the USSR, China, Cuba, etc., Burkina Faso, they had all seen exponential growth immediately after the adoption of a socialist economy. They all saw immediate exponential growth. So, I'm just going to continue.
The proposal by Karl Marx was that socialism is an inevitable state of society that will evolve as the oppressed working classes rise up. Marx foresees a dictatorship of the proletariat that will follow the overthrow of the middle and upper classes, who in turn will eventually lead to a socialist society of harmonious equality. Marx does not, though, advocate this as a political movement, nor does he...
That's not true. Read fucking Critique of the Gotha Program. It's a short book. It literally covers exactly what Marx thinks of the communist movement as a political movement. And Engels talks about it a shit ton. Read Principles of Communism. This is just completely false.
He proposed any solution as to how it could be made to happen. He just theorized that it would happen inevitably by itself.
That's so bullshit. What the fuck does that mean, by itself? That communism will just happen out of nowhere? By itself. What does that mean? That communism will just poof into existence? No. Marx theorized that there will be revolutions that turn into the overthrow of the dictatorship of class from the bourgeoisie to the proletariat is a legitimate step into the development of communism. Communism doesn't just fucking come out of nowhere. There has to be a development of the of productive capability. There has to be a social revolution. There has to be this point is so nonsensical. Let me hear this again, exactly what he says.
Marx does not, though, advocate this as a political movement, nor does he propose any solution as to how it could be made to happen.
That's false, but we already talked about that.
Just theorized that it would happen inevitably by itself.
So he theorized that it would happen inevitably by itself. Yes, he did theorize that it would happen inevitably through the inherent processes of the socioeconomic structure. The contradictions of capitalism, alienation, exploitation, these all contribute to the rise of instability within the system, which leads to social revolution, and etc. This makes no sense. I don't see... This point is so nonsensical.
In fact, Marx was never fond of the idea of communism that grew out of his theories, and even distanced himself from being called a communist when the term was coined during his lifetime.
That's totally fucking false. Hold on, I'll let him finish first.
And in any case, Marx thought this will only happen when industrialization reaches a critical point. Okay,
so he doesn't expand on that. So Marx distances himself not from the word communism, and I know exactly what this guy's talking about. He's talking about the time that Marx said, if they are Marxists, then I am not a Marxist. But that was in reference to the social democratic parties that were proposing reformism into communism. He said that, and it's actually hilarious because the social democratic parties actually hid the Critique of the Gotha program They actually, like, literally locked up the critique of the Gotha program in a vault to keep, because literally that book had all of Marxist criticisms of the reformist socialism, or the reformist socialist ideology. And he said, if they are Marxist, I am not a Marxist, and in reference to the Social Democratic parties, because he completely disagreed with the idea that you could reform from capitalism to socialism. It's exactly opposite of what this fucking guy is saying. He actually believed that communism could only happen with revolution. And the Social Democrats said that no, we can just reform. And so that's why Marx said, if they are Marxist, I am not a Marxist, because he was referring to the reformist Social Democrats.
Collectivism, or the joint ownership of all assets, leads to a nationalization of industry and appropriation of all private goods. Okay, this one fails catastrophically already during Lenin's life, and he then introduces the new economic plan in 1921.
Where's the evidence for this? Lenin immediately began with the NEP. There was no catastrophic failure of collectivism in the USSR. That didn't happen. Immediately after the revolution, immediately after the formation of the USSR, there was the new economic policy that happened. Like, that was, Lenin understood that there needed to be a development of the infrastructure in the USSR. He knew this before the revolution even began. That, like, this claim is completely baseless. There's no basis for this claim. I don't see what the fuck, like.
The dictatorship of the proletariat shall be upheld by centralized democracy through a system of independent, locally elected party committees, Soviets, that carry the voice of the people to a central committee which decides on the policy of the state based on an open debate. And
that's false. That is a false description of how the Soviet government worked. The local Soviets, the Soviets and the party were two separate entities. The Soviets did not go to the party, the Central Committee. The Soviets went to the Supreme Soviet. The party had their own local party conventions that would lead up to the Central Committee. These are two separate entities. Did they cooperate? Yes, they did, because they're part of the same fucking government. But that was a false description. The Soviets do not go up to the Central Committee. The Soviets go up to the Supreme Soviet, which essentially does something similar to the Central Committee, except they are actually the legislative body of the Soviet Union. The party was more of a check system. The party essentially served to ensure that the legislature would follow the socialist plan. That's all the party was really for. Now let's continue.
Believe it or not, Lenin actually practiced this during his entire tenure as leader of Soviet Russia.
Well, yeah, because he wasn't a fucking dictator, but whatever. We already know what you're going to say, so.
But this was one of three major points of contention between Trotsky and Lenin on one side and Stalin on the other. See,
this is so fucking bullshit. Oh my God, hold on.
Stalin opposes any democratic process whatsoever and sees the Central Committee as an autocratic, closed entity that simply dictates.
That is so fucking backwards. Oh my God. Okay, so first of all, no. Second of all, why are you grouping Lenin with Trotsky? You realize that Trotsky was like not at all nearly as important as like many of the other members, like Kalinin, right? Like what you see with these false Soviet historians all the time is they hold Trotsky to this high standard. Oh, he was so close to Lenin. No, Stalin was far closer to Lenin. Trotsky was on the same level to Lenin as like fucking Molotov was. Or not Molotov, sorry, fucking Zinoviev. Or Kamenev, or fuck, which one am I talking about? Doesn't matter. The point is that Trotsky is so fucking over, just completely held to an unreasonably high standard compared to Stalin. And not only that, Stalin was actually the one who wanted to have more democratic reform. In fact, the Trotsky and the Trotskyists not including the left opposition, or sorry, the United Opposition, because there were members of the United Opposition that wanted to bring more Soviet democracy. But Trotsky himself actually wanted to expand the Central Committee's powers over the Soviets. It was actually Stalin, and he would continue this policy over his entire fucking. He would continue this policy over his entire leadership of trying to have democratic reform in the Soviet Union and give more power to the Soviets. He believed that the party was only a temporary necessity. The party only needed to exist to ensure that the Soviet Union remains intact until it is stabilized and the economy is sufficiently developed. And this is why when Stalin begins to have, disagreements with the Khrushchevites, this is why he attempts to transfer power from the Central Committee, from the party, to the actual legislature, because he knew, and he was correct in this analysis, the party was too easily impressionable, and Stalin knew that if socialism were to survive in the Soviet Union, the power would have to be transferred from the party to the Soviet legislature. And actually, this is exactly what Cuba did. As soon as Cuba was stabilized and was sufficiently industrialized, the party was completely separated from the government. Now, the party has very little to do with the actual legislature and executive branches of the government. And this is a good thing. This is what the Soviet Union and Stalin was trying to do. But the Khrushchevites, the neo-Trotskyists, prevented that from happening, ultimately leading to the dissolvement of the USSR. So this whole story that this guy just fucking put out is completely backwards, completely opposite of the legitimate history of the Soviet Union.
Lenin dictates his political testament in early 1923. In it, he issues a stark warning against letting Stalin succeed him and names Trotsky as his...
This letter was, and we have plenty of evidence to suggest or to support that this letter that was supposedly written by Lenin to support Trotsky and to dis fucking name Stalin was totally fabricated by Trotsky himself. We have plenty of evidence to support this fact. This is a well-known fact among Marxist-Leninists. This is just another common case of Soviet falsehoods.
His choice for succession instead. With Lenin only partly present, Stalin starts moving into position to take over. Aware of who his main competitor will be, he conspires against Trotsky with Zinoviev and Kamenev.
Oh my god, this is so backwards. It was Trotsky with... What the fuck? It was Trotsky who fucking conspired with Zinoviev and Kamenev in the United Opposition, not Stalin. Stalin was actually with fucking Lenin and the legitimate party apparatus the whole time. It was Trotsky who sided with Zinoviev and Kamenev. What the fuck do you think the United Opposition was? This is so fucking absurd. Like, what the hell? At this point, I should just make this an anti-communist absurdity challenge. Like, what the fuck is this? This is totally backwards. Like, what the hell? Alright, so basically the takeaway from this video, the first half of the video isn't so bad. Like, there are very minor mistakes made throughout the first half of the video, but nothing really. I originally wasn't planning to make a response to this video because I just didn't see enough really to talk about. But as soon as the second half starts rolling in, that's when it just became totally fucking backwards, and I needed to make a response to it because this is so common. You constantly see the roles of Stalin and Trotsky be reversed, and it's just it's all bullshit. It's total Soviet historical falsehoods, and yeah, I mean that's essentially the takeaway from this video. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the Q&A. Also, if you guys want to leave questions for the Q&A, go ahead and put it in the comment section with the hashtag Q&A. so that I can find it easier. I didn't mention that in the last video because I wasn't thinking about it ahead of time. I will answer all the questions from the previous video. Don't worry about that. But this time, I will look through both the last videos and this video's comment section for my Q&A. So either video you can comment on, and from now on, please leave the hashtag Q&A so I can find it easier. Thank you once again for watching, and I will see you, comrades, in the next video.